All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly 30-minute webinar. My name is Dre Devots, Systems Engineer here at Verify, and I'm going to be your host for today's session. Today, we're going to show you troubleshooting the UCCX Real Time CSQ widget. And here to present for you today is my good friend, Mike Stratton. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Dre. How are you?
Doing fantastic, sir. Thank you. All right. Also, don't forget, all our webinars are recorded and posted within 24 hours. Just head over to verify.com/webinars to find all of our latest webinars. First, we're going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. Then we'll jump to a live demo where Mike is going to guide us through that troubleshooting UCCX real-time widget. We'll leave time for Q&A, so during the demo, if you have any questions, make sure to enter them by accessing the Q&A option. After Q&A, we're going to award one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card, so hang around and see if you won. All right, Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. Deployable as either on-prem or a hosted cloud solution, we provide industry-leading CDR and call analytics, as well as customizable dashboards and widgets, CCX reporting, remote phone control, change management, Cisco Cube CDR, and our latest additions, Zoom and WebEx call reporting. If you have any questions about our features, please contact us at support@verify.com or reach out to your account manager. One more thing before we kick this off, Verify offers an enhanced consulting service to our customers. Verify's SE team engages with you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, report building, dashboard configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you a dedicated Verify SE to do the heavy lifting, give you a stress-free, hands-off experience. For more information, please contact us or your account manager, and we'd be glad to speak more in depth about our pricing and terms of service for our enhanced consulting services, or ECS. All right, we're going to hand things over to Mike now. Don't forget submit any of your questions into Q&A panel, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation.
Hey, everyone. Today I'm going to be actually move more stuff out of my way here. Today I'll be demonstrating different ways to troubleshoot the UCCX Real Time CSQ widget. So behind the scenes, this widget is a little bit different than the other widgets and the real-time, like the other widgets, including the real-time agent widget and some of the reports. So the troubleshooting steps here are going to be a little bit unique to just this widget. I've got some lab examples and some screenshots today. I want to keep as much of it as authentic and real as possible, but I've taken some shortcuts in the interest of time. So when tickets are open and when issues come up with this widget, and it's the widget, this one here and this one here. So when issues arise, they fall under two categories. One, the data in the widget is incorrect. The numbers aren't updating, or the counts are wrong, or the widget is displaying all zeros. Basically, there is data. We have rows and columns. You can see something. It's just not what you expect to see. The other scenario is the widget is showing no data available, like you see right here. And so each system or each symptom will have different causes and different solutions. So I'm going to kind of cover each and the steps we would take to troubleshoot either of those different scenarios. So when the data is incorrect, and referring to this widget right here, but the widget is displaying something, so columns and rows. This tells me that the software is able to communicate with the database. So we are able to go out to the CCX, and the query is returning with some data. Now, the data may not be correct, but there's not like an error or a connection issue between us and contact center. So the data in this widget comes from a specific table within the CCX. And now this table, Cisco has some information, public information on it. This is from a schema guide from version 11 of Contact Center, but it still applies to today's or to the current version. The table is called the RTCSQS summary table. It contains the real-time stats for all of your configured contact service queues. It's updated automatically, and it can be anywhere between 5 to 3 minutes. It can be refreshed. There's settings within CCX that determine how fast it's updated, but this table contains the stats. So really, CCX has a simple table. This is a table where it updates with just the numbers, We don't have to go out and like query a bunch of rows of data to say, hey, out of all these 5,000 rows, how many apply to this queue and are this type of call type? How many are abandoned or handled? Cisco just tells us, hey, there are 5 abandoned calls out of 20 total calls, and we can pull that data into the widget, which is why we can query it so fast, is because it's a very simple table and it's just easy to query. So and then to configure this table, let me bring up my CCX lab. Here's my CCX lab. It's an older version of CCX, but I'm just gonna refresh it because it's gonna probably time me out. Yep. So if I go into the lab, there we go. If you go under Tools, Real-Time Snapshot Config, you'll see the settings that can be turned on to populate this table. So when you're deploying a CCX with our software, our instructions do have you come in here, check all these boxes. This is the IP address of the verify system, and then this drop down here tells Cisco how often to update the stats in that table. So if you're comparing the data in the widget to like a report and the numbers are different but not showing zeros, the first thing we want to do is to make sure that the widget is actually updating. So I would give it, if you don't know how often or what the data writing interval is set to, you can check the widget, check the data writing interval, make sure that the refresh interval here is somewhat close to what is set within CCX. If CCX is set to update every 180 seconds and our widget is set for every 5 seconds, the widget will refresh that query every 5 seconds, but you won't see updated stats for at least for around 3 minutes. So make sure that the CCX is updating as quick as you want it to. I always set every 5 seconds, and then I always set this widget every 5 seconds. That way, you can see it as real time as we can. So give this widget a little bit of time. If you suspect something's wrong, wait a couple minutes, give it 5-10 minutes, see if the stats change. If the stats are updating, but the counts seem off, maybe they're lower than what you expect. Maybe you have a report from CUIC or a report from Verify that shows different call counts. Just understand that this widget has its own special table and that all the other reports, including what comes from CUIC, are coming from the historical reporting database where Cisco sometimes reports those calls a little bit differently. So it is possible. This widget down here is our historical reporting, the CSQ statistic details widget. This widget is looking at the database. This is looking at a different table in the database. So it is possible to have different counts between a report and this widget. They should be in the same ballpark, but depending upon what happened to the call, you may see different things. For example, the real-time CSQ widget and the stats that we get from Cisco, we get total calls handled, calls abandoned, and then everything else falls under calls DQ'd. Within the actual data in the historical database, we get aborted, abandoned, DQ'd, handled by script. There's also handled by CSQ. So when you get into these less frequent dispositions, they can be broken out in their own columns. So if you were to select handled, abandoned, and DQ'd to match what you see up here, the aborted calls, the handled by script, the handled by CSQ calls will also count towards this total count, whereas they would just be grouped as like DQ'd in this widget. So if you're seeing discrepancies in the counts, definitely turn on all the columns in the widget or in the report to see what's if you can see those missing calls. If you still can't make sense of it, give us a shout, shoot us an email, open a ticket with support, and we can jump in and take a look. But next, though, if the widget is showing data or it's showing zeros, and if it's not updating, then this means the query is returning data, but the data is not being refreshed or updated by the CCX. And there's a couple different reasons why that could happen. So first thing you want to do is make sure that the Verify software is pointed at the correct server. So in an HA or high availability environment, the table that we're querying for this widget is only updated on the main server and not on the failover or on the subscriber. So if there was a failover and we're still pointing at the original server, we might be pointing at the incorrect server, or if there was a failover and we didn't catch it, and then or if we didn't or if the software failed over and then no one failed it back over to the main server, we could be looking at the wrong table on the wrong database. So to check the primary server and verify, hover over the settings under platforms in the top right corner, click on UCCX clusters. I'm going to open it in a new tab. And then once it pops up, come in here and check the active database server. So this is the server that we're looking at for the real-time CSQ stats. Here I'm looking at the primary server. My primary server IP address is this one here. This is the host name for my primary server. If I should be looking at this server, or if I'm looking at the secondary server and I need to look at the primary server, click this button right here, and then it'll ask you to, if you want to initiate the failover either to the secondary or back to the primary database server. So if the stats aren't updating, first thing to do, make sure we're looking at the right server. Now, if you're looking at the wrong server, all of the other reports and the widgets that use the historical database should be working. The CCX does mirror the two databases for all the historical data, so you can have it fail over. Everything else will work except the real-time CSQ widget because it's looking at a table that's no longer being refreshed. So check here. And then if we once you set this back to the primary, or if it was not looking at the correct server, come back in, go back to the dashboard, reload it, and see if it works. Now, because the widget is refreshing data every couple of seconds, and we don't cache the data, the next time it queries, if you fix the issue, you'll see data or updated data and stats within the widget. If we don't fail back over, or if we do fail back over and it's still not fixed, you can jump into CCX to actually confirm that we're looking at the right server. So within the CCX, bring back Firefox here. Under serviceability, now this is not an HA server, so I can't completely show you, but I'll show you where to go. Under serviceability, once it loads, go to Tools, and the Control Center Network Services. There's two servers, or if you have two servers, you'll see a column right here. There'll be an M or an S. M for master, S for slave. We want to be pointing at the master server, so you can check both of your servers. Whichever server has the M in it is the server we want to look at. So I've had cases where customers have had a failover. They weren't aware of it. We thought we were looking at the right server. We jump into CCX and we actually figure out that we're not looking at the right server. So if you think we're looking at the right server, just make sure that we are indeed looking at the point at the correct server. If you're 100% positive we are looking at the correct server, you've checked it and verified, you've checked it within CCX. I have seen a few instances then where even though we fail back over, it's almost like our servers kind of hangs up and is still stuck on looking at the incorrect server. So in that case, if everything else is great, you're 100% positive, I recommend the next step would be then to restart the verify service. So to do that, on a Windows box, just jump into the Windows Services Manager, find the verify service, right click and restart. If you have our Linux server deployed, you can connect to the CLI using PuTTY, and I just learned recently that you can also use Windows Command Prompt. So we're going to use that today. To connect to the box through Windows Command Prompt. I mean, PuTTY, if you're familiar with PuTTY, it should be pretty easy. In Command Prompt, if I remember it is SSH, and then the login, which is verify admin at, and then the IP address or host name of the server. And then it'll ask me for a password. And there we go. So now we're logged into the server. This is my local lab system. To restart the service, to bounce the verify software, just type in sudo systemctl restart verify.service, and it should restart. If you want to check the status, up arrow, go back, enter status instead of restart, and then it'll show you what's going on. So the service is active. It just started on today at 13:14, which was about less than a minute ago. So we restarted the service at this point. Then you restarted the service, refresh the page. First time after a restart, it may take 30 seconds to a minute for the web page to come up. That's normal. Usually comes up right at the point where I start to get, a little antsy. Just give it a couple seconds, and once it comes up, then confirm. Make sure that the widget is displaying data. If it's not for some reason, give us a shout. We can jump on a call and kind of see what's going on. But at that point, you've pretty much done everything you can, except if you've restarted and it's still showing zeros or it hasn't refreshed. There is one more thing you can do, besides reach out to support. Um, you can go connect to the UCCX via the CLI, and then you can actually query that table to see what's in there. So I have the command. Let me bring up Notepad here. So here is the copy of the table. So the query to run is when you're connected to the contact center. It's run UCCX SQL DB underscore CRA select star from RT CSQ summary. Now we have this query in our knowledge base. There's a whole article on troubleshooting this widget. When you run this command, it's going to bring back something that looks like this. Here's the header for the table, all the different column names, and then there's going to be a row of data for each CSQ. So we can see the different stats here, like here, logged in agents, there's 6, 2 available agents, unavailable agents. So this is kind of like what I was saying, where Cisco just gives us the numbers and then we just display it in the widget. And then, when you're looking at these results, and you can do it you can query it for each, for the pub and the sub, or the CCX pub and the CCX sub. What to look for in this, really where I would start is to look at these date stamps. So there's 2 date stamps. This one here is called start date time. This tells you when these stats started, and these stats should always refresh or restart. They go back to 0 every night at midnight. So what you want to see is, if I was in here on the 12th, because this is the January 12th is when this query was generated. On the 12th, I would expect to see the start time to be at January 12th at midnight. So if I ran this today, I would expect to see the 24th at midnight. And then the second timestamp is the end date time. This is the last time the table was refreshed or the stats were updated. So here, if I was on the 12th, I'm troubleshooting. It's 2:05 in the afternoon or 2:02 in the afternoon, and the last time it was updated was on the 12th at 14:01. Then that tells me that the table was just recently updated. Everything's working. But if I came in here today and I saw stats that were the last time they were refreshed was January 12th, then I know the table is not being updated. So when the table is not being refreshed on the contact center side, that can lead to stats that are lower than what you expect. I've seen it go down or stop updating in the morning, and so by the afternoon, your queues only are showing like 1 or 2 calls when there's been dozens and dozens of calls throughout the day. Or I've seen it where it's been down for a couple of days, and because of this date stamp, because we query looking for the most recent time, it's showing all zeros because there isn't anything from the current day for us to query. So you can check both tables. So here's the primary, the secondary, was last updated on the 4th. So we were just troubleshooting an issue, I think around January 12th to see what was there. So at this point, if the data is not accurate or updated or current for the day, we usually, most of our customers will then just reboot the server after hours and see if then the data starts to repopulate. Okay, we'll stop here and then move back to and that's kind of it for if the data is displaying. We can see the data in the table. We just want to make sure that the verifier is pointing at the right server. Confirm which server we need to be pointing at, and then if it's still not working, bounce the service or go back to the source and see what data is contained within the actual tables. So all right, so going back to the dashboard, the alternate scenario is you have no data. There's nothing displayed except this message here that says no data available. What this means is the query went out and was unable to return with a result. So think of it as the software's telling you, the verify service has no data available to populate the widget. At this point, you can check the logs, but now's a good time to think, hey, did we make any changes? Did we change a new IP address? Were there any network outages or network issues? Did a password change? We're really not really troubleshooting the data anymore. We're troubleshooting the connection to CCX. So you can jump back in here into the connection settings. You can edit your cluster. You make sure the IP address is correct on both servers. Make sure the host name is correct. And then if you want to, if you know the passwords for the historical reporting user and the wallboard user, enter them here. If you don't know them and if you really want to try to reset them, back in CCX, which is not here, I'm going to go back to Firefox. If you go under back to Unified CCX Administration, go to Tools, and then Password Management. The passwords for those two users can be reset. This is the wallboard user, and this is the historical reporting user. You can enter them here. In an HA environment, you will have to go into the other server, the other CCX server, and manually update the password there too. There will be a button up here and down here where you can check the passwords to make sure that they are consistent between both servers. So once you put that in there, resave it, go back, make sure to see if the dashboard's working. If it's not, if you're 100% positive that the passwords are correct, IP address, host name, everything else is working, you can come back to the CCX clusters. You can click on this box here to run a cluster check. It'll go out and test the connections. You can see if the license it'll check the license, see if we can talk to it. And it'll check the different logins with the IP address. It'll show you the different servers. And if everything is green, then we can move forward and then go to the logs. So to access the logs, click the logs icon, top right corner. And then there's a bunch of logs in this drop-down list. The two logs we really want to take a look at: the insight log, which is the default log that's selected, and then the CCX analytics log, which the logs with the date and timestamp in here. These are the older logs, and then the most current log will be the one log without the date and time in the file name. So you can check these two. If you're working with us, and if we ask you for a copy of the logs, you can click the download all logs button here. It'll zip up the logs and then download them through your browser. You can email them to us for us to take a look at, or if you just want to, feel the need to, dig through them, you can, unzip them and then look through them that way. I've already have some examples here. Really looking at the insight log. This was from an actual system we were looking at a little bit ago, where we, in this case, we were getting the error that said no data available. So this was the most latest log from that system. If we scroll up, when looking through the logs, when looking for an error message, you can just do a search and look for the word error. So we'll have different entries here that say info, like a warning or an error message. In this case, if I'm scrolling up from the bottom, I'm looking for something where you have a bunch of indented rows like this, where it says at over and over again. This is the error message here. We can see it. We before we generated the logs, we had them go into the dashboard, try to load the dashboard, and then when it failed, we jump right into the log so that the error is towards the bottom of the log, so we know where to look. So the error that we were seeing said incorrect password or user for the wallboard user. It's not known on the database server, and then as we went through the logs, we would see it over and over again. Every time the widget would try to refresh, we see the same error. And so what we ended up doing, this error kind of points in the right direction. We went back and forth a couple times. Are you sure it's the right password? Are you sure it's the right password? It was. They reset a couple times. So we had them, actually dumb down the complexity of the password to see if that would, maybe there was an unusual character that was, throwing everything off. And sure enough, making it a much more simpler password fixed the issue. And we were able to confirm that was the problem. But then, they would then go back in and try a different password to see how it worked. And actually, after the password was fixed, it still wasn't showing data. But at this point, after it was fixed, we weren't seeing any sort of error in the logs. At that point, we went back to the table, we queried it, and all of this was missing. So really what we looked at when we saw the results was this. And so this is not right. This will generate the same no data available. So the table's there. It was configured, the CCX was configured to write data to this table, but it was showing nothing. So what we ended up doing in that case was they restarted the CCX, and the moment it came back up, there was data in this table, and the widget was working. So just to kind of recap, no data available means the query is failing, or there is truly nothing in this table. best thing to do would be, check your passwords, make sure we can talk to the CCX, and then check the logs. And then also, at any time, if you get stuck or you want one of us to jump on a call and take a look, don't hesitate to open up a ticket. And I'll pause here, and Dre, we can do some last second Q&A.
All right, taking a look at Q&A. I don't see any questions right now. Your troubleshooting skills are pretty good there, Mike.
There we go.
Yeah, give us a couple more seconds here and see if anybody has any questions. If you have any questions, throw them in that Q&A panel at the bottom right there. All right. All right. Thank you guys, everybody, for joining this week. Don't forget, next week we got how to isolate inbound and outbound calls using Verify Cisco Cube Analytics. And your host, Matt and Victor, for that one next week. So make sure to register on our website for that. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Mike. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your week.